The Bills started slow, but boy, did they finish strong. I'm breaking down my top takeaways from the Bills' win over the Titans today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. Happy Victory Monday to you. The Buffalo Bills defeated the Tennessee Titans 34-10 and improved to 5-2 on the year. After falling behind 10-0, the Bills scored 34 unanswered points over the last 40 minutes of the game to win it. And that start was depressing. We'll talk about that certainly later on in this episode when I get to things I didn't like. But of course, the Bills eventually just imposed their will like they were supposed to in this football game. You know, watching that sloppy start, I had a piece of me that kind of felt like the Bills were going to get out of it. But as it continued, I started to ask myself the question, what are they going to have to do to make me forget about it? And now, probably the answer to that is nothing. But what they did do ultimately kind of erased it. Now, they got to get that figured out. We'll talk about that. But what a finish to this game over the last 40 minutes where the Bills literally scored 34 unanswered points. So let's do what we do here post-game, things I liked. We'll spend a lot of times there because I got plenty of things to get into offensively, special teams, and defense. Then we'll talk about things I didn't like. Got some injury stuff to get into, predictions, what's next. I want to talk a little bit about the AFC East as well. But getting into things I liked, I mean, it's how the team woke up. Awful start to the game. You have pre-snap penalties, can't get stops on defense, can't convert third downs on offense. Amari Cooper drops his first target that would have been a first down, and then they got out of it. And I think there's a lot of reasons why. You can certainly point to the Brandon Codrington return. You can look at the big stop on defense to start the second half. But Josh Allen, his 100th career start and the passing game. So many things that I'd loved about how this passing game came together in totality in this football game. You know, Josh started 4 of 11 in the first half. 4 of 11, I'm like, are we going to another 9 for 30 type deal here, or what's going to happen? Well, he finishes 21 of 33, 323 yards with 2 touchdowns passing. And some of those third down conversions were big third down conversions, throwing the ball down the field, finding Dalton Kincaid a couple of times, finding Amari Cooper down the field. There was a lot of clutch moments for Josh Allen in a game that, of course, the Bills wind up winning by 3 scores. A lot of that is because of how Josh Allen came alive and really just felt like he started to just trust himself, start ripping the ball, pushing it down the field, and had a lot of confidence in what he started to do there. And it was sloppy to start, but big shout out to Josh Allen, as it's unbelievable to think that he started 100 games for this football team. Here's to 100 more. Here's to 100 more. But kind of extending the Josh Allen conversation into this passing game, I think they found their dudes. You know, everything was everybody eats, and that's fine. Everyone can have a bite. But they figured out who this passing game is about. Keon Coleman, 4 for 124. Amari Cooper, 4 for 66 and a touchdown. Khalil Shakir, 7 for 65. Dalton Kincaid, 3 for 52. 25 of Josh Allen's 32 targeted passes went to those dudes, and that's where they need to go. Those are your best players. When you think about target distribution for this passing game, Coleman, Cooper, Shakir, Kincaid. That's who this has got to be about. Now, those other guys, Knox, the backs, Hollins, whoever, Curtis Samuel, they can get their little opportunities, but I love that in this game, as it was in a rut and you figured out how to get out of the rut, it was about Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid. Shout out Ty Johnson, fun touchdown reception. I really enjoyed that play. The Bills kind of flooded that middle of the field zone with 3 different options at different times, and eventually somebody was going to uncover, and that's what happened with Ty Johnson. He scored a touchdown, but I love that they found their dudes. How about Keon Coleman? 4 for 124, a lot of catch and run, still able to do some things with ball skills and size down the field, but really a lot of catch and run and breaking a tackle. And, he can't say that he's never been caught from behind, because he certainly did. But certainly some huge plays, including on that first touchdown drive, able to kind of break through some contact and find some soft area and made himself available and had a big catch and run. Almost had that touchdown reception. It was very close. I don't think he had control. So I think the officials wind up getting that call correct, but just very close, and I think those are the types of things you want to see from Keon. How about Amari Cooper putting that first play behind him, goes on to catch his next 4 targets for 66 yards, including a touchdown. And the touchdown was great, right? That was probably the easiest of the other 2 catches. The others was a kind of a vertical shot over the shoulder, being able to make a good adjustment to the football. And then how about speaking of great adjustments, working back for that ball that Josh kind of had to throw behind him based on the leverage of the defense. And, you could feel him in this game, right? Coming in, tough circumstances, 4 days on the team, comes in and 4 catches for 66 yards. And you have to remember, Curtis Samuel goes down in this game. And whatever you think about Curtis Samuel, he should know the offense, right? So you only have 5 receivers. So you lose Curtis Samuel. Now you're down to 4. One of them's Amari Cooper, who's been on the team for 4 days. It was pretty cool to be able to see him step in and make the impact that he did. Khalil Shakir, clutch catches over the middle of the field, yards after catch, really nice yards after catch moments in this football game. And then Dalton Kincaid, 3 catches, 52 yards, all down the field, right? You got some corner routes, you got some backside like outbreakers and stuff. I mean, it was fun utilization. We know that Dalton Kincaid can catch and turn and run, but to see him make some plays down the field, it was huge plays. So that one third down conversion where Josh just kind of launches it down there, puts a lot of loft on the ball, and it was wind up being challenged by Tennessee. It was rightfully called a catch. But that, to me, that was such a big moment in this football game. And so for Josh to kind of just know who his guys are, it felt good. It felt like he kind of knew who the ball was supposed to go to with this distribution of players. So Coleman, Cooper, Shakir, Kincaid, Josh Allen, that's the passing game. That's the passing game. 25 of 32 targeted passes to those guys. And I'd like to see it be about that way moving forward. Sprinkle on the other guys as ancillary pieces, but you know who butters the biscuit, right? It's those guys. I thought pass protection was really good in this game. Obviously, Dawkins got beat early for the sack on the inside move. Very uncharacteristic moment. That's going to happen once every, few hundred plays in the NFL. But I thought for the most part, the passing offense was able to get to their answers under pressure. Even if they didn't always connect, it was good to see them have opportunities, even when there was a free runner. It felt like Josh had more options and knew how to get to them in ways that I felt were not as true in previous weeks. Josh Allen, 33 dropbacks, maybe more, maybe might have been 35 if you count the scrambles. Josh Allen was only hit 4 times. That's it. That's very good. Maybe there's a little bit of pressure, but only hit 4 times. I thought pass protection was good. Even when the Bills weren't converting early in that game, they were 0 for 5 on their first five third downs. It wasn't because Josh Allen didn't have time. That was what was frustrating to me about it. He had time, and there just didn't seem to be anything open, or, we'll watch the all-22. We'll figure out what happened there, but there wasn't completions. For whatever reason, there wasn't completions, whether it was nobody open, Josh not finding the open guys, whatever it was, they couldn't get conversions. And so the pass pro, I thought, was really consistent throughout the game. And then how about the running backs? You got to mention these guys. They both have a touchdown. All 3 of them have a touchdown. Ty Johnson with the receiving touchdown. Ray Davis, James Cook, both with rushing touchdowns. Cook 12 for 32 and a touchdown. Ray Davis 5 for 41 and a touchdown. I'd like to see the workload. It felt like it was like more Ray Davis late I'd like to see him going a little bit more. And I think the Bills kind of have to figure out their distribution, as it feels like they're more interested in involving Ray Davis. And I don't think you can really look at the yards per carry, and they don't tell a good story, in my opinion, because of the game script when each one received their carries. I think you look, well, Cook 12 for 32 and Davis with 9 more yards on 7 less carries. It doesn't really tell the story, in my opinion. I would like to see them both involved earlier. So basically more Ray Davis earlier, but then just, I think you can get them going consistently, each of them throughout the game. And I think that's probably one of the next tasks for Joe Brady to kind of figure out is, how do you get the most out of both of these backs for an entire game, as opposed to, all right, it's late in the game, Ray Davis is going to grind it out. I think he can help you earlier. And I think that James Cook can obviously help you more in the passing game. So still some meat on the bone here to kind of improve things, but love how this offense got out of a rut. And I love how I feel like we had a good definition of who the guys are supposed to be in this passing game, and love how they woke up. Love how the pass protection came together. All right, there's a lot more that I liked. On the other side of it, we're talking several things special teams-wise and several things defensively, folks. Be sure to stick with me. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something that scares you? For me, my personal fear is I'm afraid of letting people down. Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us, but what about the fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them, because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. All you do here with BetterHelp is fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary-style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, and discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. We'll get to the defense, but I next want to talk about special teams, because when you talk about things that sparked this football team, I think you got to look at the big kick return from Brandon Codrington. You know, Tennessee goes up 10-0. And on that kickoff, after they go up 10-0, Brandon Codrington gave this team an explosive return. Bills have great field position. They start at the 39. 3 plays later is a touchdown. That was a big moment in this game. And then I thought, for a windy day, he did a great job in the punt return capacity. Now, was there a few moments I was a little nervous, right? Felt like the ball was a little loose. He took care of it. It wound up being no harm there. But to average 11.2 yards on 5 returns with a long of 14, very consistent production, taking care of the football. I love the play where he was able to field it off the ground. I mean, you talk about hidden yards. I say this all the time. They're not hidden at all. They're right there in front of you. That ball is going to roll, and you're going to have worse field position. And he picks it up, and he winds up getting a nice little return out of that. I think his decision-making, his ball handling is continue to be very good as a UDFA rookie that, you know, didn't get on the team until a few days before the season started. And so I think he's been a real positive to this team. I thought he was a big positive against Tennessee, and I think you can credit a lot of the comeback, if you will, or the starting to play the way they're supposed to Brandon Codrington and what he did in that kick return off the touchdown that put Tennessee up 10-0. And how about Tyler Bass? I mean, obviously a very, very challenging week for Tyler Bass, coming off of another poor game against the Jets. The Bills sign a practice squad kicker. And Sean McDermott told the broadcast team that it was an open competition this week between Lucas Haversick and Tyler Bass. And Tyler Bass won the in-house competition to be the kicker this week. And he responds going 2 for 2 on field goals, 4 for 4 on extra points. And I thought he hit the ball pure, right? Like they weren't goofy kicks that they snuck in, or it felt like he didn't have control of the ball. Those are pure kicks. And one thing that I noticed during the game, and people talked about it on social media, and then Tyler Bass kind of confirmed it afterwards, is that it felt like there was a lot of positive fan support for Tyler Bass. And even, he went on to kick field goals in during the game. There were cheers before he even kicked it. Some good cheers in pregame. And look, I know he's a professional athlete and that he's not played well, and whatever boos or cheers, whatever you want to talk about. For Tyler Bass, we know he's a capable kicker in the NFL. He's had good seasons. There's a reason he got the extension. It feels like a lot of this is mental, and however he can find some confidence, and I think maybe that was helpful, right? And it was just good to see, like, just being good humans towards him, especially out of what you've kind of heard in the past with the different threats and things that have went his way coming out of that loss to Kansas City in the playoffs. I felt good about it. And I'm nervous about Tyler Bass. I was nervous every one of those kicks, all 6. I was nervous every single time, but he hit them all. And for today, you can put the pitchforks down and keep the tomatoes in your pocket. Tyler Bass goes 6 for 6 and is pure on all of his kicks. So I thought from a special teams perspective, Brandon Codrington and Tyler Bass both did a very, very nice job. Let's talk about the defense and things that I like defensively. And I want to talk about the middle 8. And if you don't know what the middle 8 is, you're going to find out right now. It's the last 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the second half, the middle 8. And you can win or lose a football game in the middle 8. And the Bills, like the deck was completely stacked against them in the middle 8, and they found a way. And I really thought it was because of the defense. Tennessee's up 10-7. They have a good chance to build. They have the ball. And in the end of half, the Titans get the ball back with a chance. And I'm thinking they're going to double dip. They have a chance to double dip because Sean McDermott chose to receive. He wanted to take advantage of the wind in the second half. That's what he said in the post game. And I disagree with that decision. I don't think you ever choose to receive the ball. He chose to receive, and then that put Tennessee in a really nice spot, but they couldn't take advantage, and credit the Bills defense. So again, that end of first half, that's the drive where A.J. Epenesa gets a huge strip sack. Now, the Titans lose 20 yards on it. The Bills are unable to recover the ball, but that obviously put them well behind the sticks, and they wind up getting no points. Then at the start of the second half, Titans get it to 3rd and 1. And on 3rd and 1, Terrel Bernard and Dorian Williams combined for a huge tackle for loss. Then I don't know what they're thinking. I'd have no idea why Brian Callahan, the head coach of the Titans, decides to go for this. It's a defensive struggle. The Bills were 0 for 5 on 3rd downs. They weren't moving the ball at all. And they chose to go for it on 4th and 1. What are they thinking? But thank you very much, Brian Callahan. Silly choice. And credit to Wayne Carter and Taylor Rapp for a huge stop. A huge stop. Get the ball back for the Bills at the plus 41. 6 plays later, Josh Allen to Amari Cooper for a touchdown, and the game breaks open. I mean, I felt like the Bills from that moment, from getting that 4th and 1 stop, the game was different. The game was different. And then I think just defensively, comparing the first and the second half, it was just like night and day. In 3rd downs, Tennessee's 5 of 8 converting in the first half. They're 1 of 8 converting in the second half. The Titans had 218 yards of offense in the first half, 71 in the second half. 5.7 yards per play in the first half, 2.44 yards per play in the second half. Now, look, the first half still happened. We're going to talk about that. I have plenty of thoughts on, what's going on with these early struggles defensively. But they figured it out and played much better football in the second half. Some individuals I want to shout out on defense, Greg Rousseau. He only had a half a sack, man, but he was disruptive all game long. Should have been intentional grounding. Or, I mean, man, that one play, like who was Mason throwing it to? Thought there was a good chance for a clean sack there, but he winds up getting a half a sack, but 6 quarterback hits. And 6 quarterback hits is the most by any player in the NFL this season. I kind of felt like Rousseau took over this game in the second half. Had a good matchup against that right tackle, Nicholas Petit-Frere, for the Titans, and he made them pay. And then credit to DeJuan Smoot for getting half of a sack, the other half of the Greg Rousseau sack. A.J. Epenesa, big-time strip sack. Should have had interception, brother. Catch that ball, man. Catch that ball. You probably house it. You have a pick six. We're talking about you as the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. But he made his presence known. And whatever they're doing with Dwayne Smoot as a starter and Epenesa off the bench, okay, it's working. Because Epenesa, for whatever reason, is just a better guy off the bench. It's like J.R. Smith in the NBA, right? Just better bench player. I don't know why, but whatever it is, don't let him play the first play of the game. He can play all the rest that he wants after that because he winds up being pretty effective. Daquan Jones, with a sack in this game. Damar Hamlin with the pick late in the game, tipped by Christian Benford. So you come away with some nice splash plays here on defense. 6 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, 11 total quarterback hits, 3 sacks, and, of course, an interception. And you get 6 tackles for loss as well. Your pass breakups, Taron Johnson with that one early, Rasul Douglas dropping a pick, but it counts as a pass breakup. Christian Benford pass breakup leads to the Hamlin interception. Some nice splash plays. And then Terrel Bernard, what a great game for him. A bunch of tackles, 2 tackles for loss, including that he was involved in that 3rd and 1 tackle, and then also had a fumble recovery, the fumbled snap from Tennessee. Terrel Bernard was able to wrestle that ball away, and that was he wanted it more than that Titans player that was on the ground with him. So great game for Terrel Bernard. So a lot of good here as this game settled in for a Bills defense that ultimately gives up 10 points and under 300 yards. All right, folks, more to get to here on the other side of it. We got to talk about the things I didn't like, and there's plenty to get into with the way that this game started. Want to recap my predictions, talk about what's next, little AFC's conversation as well. Folks, be sure to stick with me. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same place where you place your bets. And they got a great deal here for you. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. I did well on FanDuel this weekend, and there's more football. I'm recording this during the beginning of the 4 o'clock games, but I had the Detroit Lions. I told you they were going to beat the Vikings. I had them. I had the money line there. I had Josh Allen over 250 passing yards. We had some nice hits. And if you want to get in on that action, check it out. FanDuel, it's a lot of fun. Just makes the games more exciting whenever you got a little action on some of these props and some of these lines over at FanDuel. Again, the great deal here. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we got to talk about some things I didn't like here. And obviously, the way this game started. Offensively, boy, rough. No rhythm. Pre-snap penalties. 0 for 5 on 3rd downs. Dawkins beat for a sack. 4 3-and-outs on the first 5 drives of the game. And I think what was the low point was you got the turnover. Terrel Bernard recovers that fumble, and you get no points. What is going on here? I knew this Tennessee defense was metrically very good, but I kind of had a lot of questions about it. And the Bills, to their credit, they figured it out, but that's a very slow start. And I'm hopeful that, you can see some things that happen in this game. I hope that it's correlative to what we see moving forward. Kincaid down the field, Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, right? I talked about this earlier. I feel like you kind of found some of your answers. Ray Davis. These are your answers. But, what would have happened if the Bills played at the beginning of the game like they did at the end? We're seeing Mitch Trubisky in the 4th quarter. So I didn't like to start offensively or defensively. And I think what's happening with this Bills defense, and it's really, most of this year, I can't really remember a game where it didn't happen. These early scripted plays are killing us. What do I mean by scripted plays? Any team that comes into a game offensively, they have the first 10, 15 or so plays scripted. They are in anticipation of, what you're going to get defensively, and you run these scripted plays, and they're usually pretty good. Well, they're killing the Bills. Teams are coming out with misdirection. They're coming out with quick passes in space. And you heard me talk about this past week on the podcast. And Tennessee took full advantage. They kind of knew some of the Bills' tendencies and were able to take advantage. Defensive linemen getting up the field. They got the screen game going. Again, quick passes and yards after catch. And you're watching this, you're like, what is going on here? I know that Mason Rudolph's better than Will Levis, but this is insane, right? They just kind of had all the answers. And so the Bills got to get better at this. They got to understand that there's a very clear trend here that teams are coming out. They're inviting your penetration style defense. They kind of know your zones. They're busting them up, and they're getting yards after catch. Like, do something different. Like, the Bills have got to start anticipating these game scripts that teams are coming out with, those early plays, and not putting themselves in such a rut where we're like, it feels like it's been going on for years where you just palms in the air like, oh, yeah, that's the Bills defense. They stink at the beginning of the game, but normally they settle down. What if they didn't stink at the beginning of the game, right? Like, what if we didn't have to go through that? That'd be nice. So I'm looking for the Bills to improve here. And I was listening to Greg Rousseau after the game, and he had a quote, and boy, it made me feel all types of things. Because if you've been listening to me talk on this podcast for any length of time, especially this year, you'll know that this quote really landed for me. He said, eventually they had to run their normal plays. Yeah, right? Like, that's definitely true. That's the point that I'm trying to say is, like, when teams have to just run their normal plays and can't just do their scripted stuff, the Bills defense settles in. But, like, don't anticipate that. Figure it out earlier. And I'm not sure it's the players. I think it's probably the positions that they're put in, because it feels like they're just out scheming the Bills over and over early on. Be nice to get ahead of that. Also, on things I didn't like, it wasn't Sam Martin's best day. I think the win was tough, but I don't feel like Sam Martin had a very consistent day putting the ball. And then we have a couple of injuries here. Terrel Bernard couldn't finish the game with an ankle injury after he was evaluated for a head injury early on. It sounds like he was trying to run and get it loosened up on the sideline, but not sure. It looks like it might have been some type of ankle deal. Hopefully that's a nothing burger, but we'll see. And then Curtis Samuel, shoulder injury. He couldn't finish the game. And look, I know that Curtis Samuel is not everybody's favorite Buffalo Bill, but he can provide an X factor to this team. And he's coming off of his best game for the team, right? Like what he did last week against the Jets. And so he can be helpful, and we'll certainly have to pay attention to what his status is. Looking at my predictions in this game, my first prediction, you guys know I'm always accountable for my predictions. My first prediction was that the Bills defense would record 3 or more sacks. We got that one right, 3 of them exactly. My next one was that the Bills would get the most yards of any team this year against the Titans. That happened. They had the top 378. They got to 389. And I'll tell you, after the first half, I was not feeling too good about that at all. I thought I was going to get skunked on that one, but we get 389 to get the prediction correct. Now, this one I whiffed on. I said a season high in rushing yards for Josh Allen. So he would need 55 yards to get a season high. He had a season low, 1 yard. Wasn't a game where he was able to really get things going with his legs. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. I also said that a Bills defender would get their first interception of the year. That didn't happen. And Rasul Douglas owes me for this one. He could have had a pick. I even said, I said, this is the week for Rasul Douglas. Mason Rudolph put it on a platter in the middle of the field. And Rasul Douglas said, you know what? No, not catching that. Tongue in cheek, obviously. But I felt that one. It just didn't come because Rasul Douglas didn't catch it when it was thrown to him. And then I predicted the Bills win, and that happened. So I go 3 for 5. And if Rasul Douglas would have caught the pass, would have been 4 for 5. What's next for the Bills? A road date in Seattle, facing a Seahawks team that beat the Falcons 34-14 on Sunday. So they'll be real happy about their win, I'm sure. That'll be the Bills' next challenge. We'll spend some time, obviously, this week getting ready for it. Then they host the Dolphins, at the Colts, host the Chiefs. That's their next 4, and then a bye week. And so, this AFC is going to be interesting. The Bills don't have head-to-head wins over the Ravens or the Texans, but they can get that head-to-head win over the Chiefs. And if you start having some ties and multiple teams, have beat each other up, that can help you. So got to take care of these games. And, you could look at those losses to the Ravens and Texans and feel like they're maybe a deal breaker and being the 1 or 2 seed. They're not, because you could still beat Kansas City and you could force the tiebreakers to continue. So be mindful of that. AFC East, boy, looking rough. The Dolphins are 2-4. They lost to the Colts 10-3. They might get Tua back next week. We'll see. That'll help them, but they're in a hole. Patriots are 1-6. They lost to the Jaguars in London. And then the Jets are 2-4. I'm recording this before they play the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, so I'm not sure what happens there. But at best, they'll be 3-4, and the Bills are 5-2. So in control of the AFC East right now, but guess what? Nobody's ever won the division in October. It all helps, but Still got to continue to take care of your business and stack wins and get this fifth. Is it fifth or sixth? I can't even remember. Whatever the next amount of AFC East division titles in a row is. What's next for this podcast? We have the All-22 review. You know all about that. I'm looking forward to that. Herd mentality crossover Thursday with Corbin from Locked On Seahawks. We'll do my primer on the Seahawks, final thoughts. You know it's coming. 3 articles in the Substack. If you guys don't know, I'm writing articles on the Bills. If you want to read them, there's a link in today's show notes to check out the Substack. We do my big picture post-game column, which will come on Monday. Midweek, you'll get my Josh Allen scouting article. And then, of course, my matchup preview against the Seahawks to close things out. And then next week will be our next end of quarter. I'm pretty sure, right? So every 4 games I do like a Bills report card. I update all my player grades. So it's a good time to check out the Herd Mentality Substack. And, of course, the subtext. You can get text messages from me. During the games, I send out texts all game long. I send out my first reaction to all major Bills news. I keep you informed all week long. So if you want to be part of our subtext community, which also gets you into the Discord, so either Substack or subtext get you into our Discord, which so many fun things are happening in there on a daily basis. We have daily polls. We have I do like a Wednesday interactive deal where we've been doing like trivia contests or just like live herd mentality. We have member spotlight stuff. We have all kinds of cool stuff going on if you want to connect with other Bills fans. We almost have 1,300 Bills fans in there. So come be part of it. You get into our Discord with either a subscription to the Substack or the subtext, and those links are in today's show notes. All right, folks, enjoy your Victory Monday. Go Bills. As always, I kindly ask you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again on the All-22 Review.